the same trip as you did. Okay, so we turn now to our traditional Thursday afternoon slot for the Pensions Minister, Steve Webauer, as it was known for many years. Of course, Steve's now been moved to conference challenge duties. I'm delighted to welcome our new Minister for Pensions and Financial Inclusion, Guy Opperman. Guy moved from being a government whip to taking up his post in the reshuffle earlier this year, and has now had a few months to get to grips with the world of pensions, and having spent quite a bit of time with him this afternoon, it's clear that he's done that. So very much looking forward to seeing what he makes of both the current landscape and setting out his thinking on some of the future priorities for the government. Minister, welcome to the conference.
Thank you very much indeed. So thank you, Graham, for that introduction, and thank you to the PLSA for inviting me here today. Being at your conference, Decoding the Future, is one of the first events that I've attended, and it is an honour to be here and to follow in such illustrious footsteps. It's always tricky following Matthew onto a stage, as we all understand, because I'm not going to wander around and make jokes about Californians. But I would say this, that I want to thank him for his report, which is an outstanding piece of work. And I would agree with him that agility and the right system will be needed in the pension system as well. And if it helps him, I met only yesterday with Margot James, specifically to discuss the recommendation that he makes in his report on the issue of pensions for the self-employed. So I should say it is a great pleasure to be back in Manchester. I'm from the true north, that is Hexham in Northumberland, the land of Hadrian's Wall. And as we call, Manchester, we call this, as Ruth Davidson, I think, put it here when she was last here, we call this the Southern Powerhouse. I should make it very clear as well that I was delighted to be given this job. I wanted to do the job, and contrary to some people's belief, I actually really enjoyed doing this immensely difficult job. I'm conscious that many of you will have worked with my predecessor, Richard Harrington, who's both a friend and a colleague of mine, and with the officials to secure the long-term improvements that we all are seeking going forward. I'm committed to continuing that work, both individually and collectively, and I look forward to discussing many of the ideas with you. I want to talk today about the department's approach to the issues that matter to you, to discuss our direction of travel under the new Secretary of State and in my role. And I also want to try and set out what are my particular priorities as the new minister. But I also want to start with an unequivocal statement of intent. The reality is that for too long in this country, savings, investments and pensions were in retreat. There is no doubt that successive governments have done great work on auto-enrolment, but the downward trend before them was clear to all to see. Unequivocally, I want to be a champion for pensions and savings. We need, quite simply, to get Britons to fall in love, once again, with pensions, savings and investments. To grasp clearly that having money put away gives you options not only to buy a home, but to change careers, survive life setbacks, and crucially, to provide better living standards in old age. This savings mission, in my view, should inform marketing, communication, and even product innovation by yourselves. And this savings challenge should be at the core of what is done, not only for the benefit of all of us, but particularly for the individual consumers who we all serve. And I believe that we should all be of one voice. Now, I've spent a large part of the day here listening to many of the breakout sessions. I sat most definitely at the back, and I also had a chance to speak to many of you as I went round the hall. And it has been a useful exercise, understanding what your desires, your hopes, and your expectations are. But I thought, before I started on priorities, to try and set out one of the reasons why I was so keen to do this job. In 2010, I was given the job of being the Member of Parliament for Hexham. And in Hexham, at that particular time, there was an issue with payday lenders. So we did something about it. And as a Member of Parliament, I'm incredibly proud to be the only Member of Parliament who's actually set up a community bank, which is fully regulated, fully authorised, and whilst it started out as a credit union, it's now functioning as a community bank. This was launched from scratch and opened in conjunction with the Church of England by the Archbishop of York, John Sentamu, on the 5th of November 2015. I'm no longer personally actively involved, not least because of the job that I now do. But our community bank is fully up to speed. It has significant amounts of money deposited, and it makes low-cost loans to those who need them most. Now, I live in an area where, at the time we set this up, Newcastle United used to be sponsored by Wonga. And as Justin Welby asked us to do, we took on the payday lenders at source and provided proper savings and loans. I believe this makes me very well qualified to do a job that I genuinely wanted to do. Now, going forward, I'm pleased to come into this role at a time when there is a great deal of consensus on the strategy for pensions reform that this and the previous governments have adopted. And I endorse a lot of the work that Richard Harrington, Steve Webb and others have done beforehand, without any shadow of doubt. I also fully understand the very long horizons involved in pensions. It is clearly a long-term game, so we need a well-thought-out approach built on solid evidence. I've seen a specific example of this in one of the first decisions that I had to help make when receiving the independent reports of John Cridland and the government actuary on the impacts of increasing life expectancy and on the future state pension age. As a government, we carefully considered this, listened to the contributions, and we made the decision on the 19th of July and signalled our intent to follow John Cridland's recommendation to increase retirement from 67 to 68 in the late 2030s. There is no doubt that we need to do this to maintain a sustainable system decades into the future. And as the report says, our policy on setting state pension age is part of a broad programme of action designed to deliver security for older people. We've already made significant progress by reducing the complexity of the state pension so that people can make more informed decisions about whether, when and how much to save, by supporting people to enjoy the benefits of fuller working lives, including the abolition of the statutory default retirement age, and helping people save through automatic enrolment, which I'm going to discuss in a lot more detail. I'd like to praise those who have engaged the concept of midlife MOT as promoted by John Cridland. Aviva and other companies have made this a priority as part of their HR. This is, in my opinion, a very, very promising idea, which I am definitely looking at. And I look forward to hearing how it is working, both with those individual companies who are trying it, but I would definitely encourage you all to look at the concept within your own businesses. So, for example, I visited a company called Steelite in Stoke first thing this morning, a company that employs several hundred workers in the potteries business. And interesting enough, they also employ an IFA. Now, that's not something that is a regular situation, where an IFA is coming into a potteries business to try and advise them on pensions and financial advice. I do see such things going forward. They have chosen to do that. This gentleman's name is Bernie, interesting name for an IFA, but he is a massive addition to the particular business that they have. For me, the second large decision that we've made was in relation to the Single Financial Guidance Bill. I cannot overstate the importance of this. Bear in mind that since the general election, the very first bill that is being considered and gone through in the House of Lords and the House of Commons is the Single Financial Guidance Bill, which I'm doing with my colleague Baroness Buscombe, who is presently guiding it through the House of Lords. One of the key objectives of this bill is to create a new body which will help create greater financial capability and pension awareness. And this first bill, I just want to give you some of the timelines so you understand where we're going. So the bill has been working its way through the House of Lords. It has what is called the report stage next Tuesday on the 24th of October. It then has its third reading, I believe, on the 6th of November. And then I will have the honour and the privilege to take it through the House of Commons from the beginning of December. It is anticipated, if all goes to plan, that Her Majesty will be signing off on the bill in approximately March next year. There is broad consensus that a single body is the way forward for financial advice and guidance. It will bring together and build upon the important work done by MAS, TPAS and PensionWise. I've been speaking to all three of these organisations, and they're all extremely enthusiastic that we are making this amalgamation and that we're ensuring that there is real opportunities that this single body can bring. The new body will be a single port of call for those seeking help, bringing money, debt and pensions guidance together and offering a more holistic approach and service to consumers and greater abilities with financial capability. It will make it easier for people to access the impartial help they need in making effective financial decisions and help plan and save for their future. I'm absolutely certain it will be something of great benefit to the pensions industry. I want to turn now to automatic enrolment. We all know that one of the most significant changes in pension savings of the last years has been automatic enrolment. It has broad cross-party support, and long may that continue. By the end of September 2017, 8.7 million people have been automatically enrolled into a workplace pension. And moreover, most people are remaining in their workplace pension after being enrolled. Our original forecast, as everybody knows, was that about a third of people would opt out, but in practice, opt-outs are lower than expected, with 9 out of 10 workers remaining in their workplace pension after being automatically enrolled. The gender gap in pension saving has now closed amongst the automatic enrolment population. The same percentage of eligible men and women are participating. And we've seen particularly low opt-out rates amongst young savers. Getting people to save early from early in their working lives is a tremendous result to build on and something I very much want to focus on. And I believe the policy will also become a strong force of social cohesion and intergenerational fairness. The major long-term beneficiaries of auto-enrolment are those who are young and on low to middle incomes. And our latest published research with small and micro employers suggests that they, often from the older generation, recognise the benefits of automatic enrolment and want to support the employees to save and are finding the process a lot easier than they anticipated. Now, I don't underestimate in any way whatsoever the challenges with the continued rollout, both generally and to individual small and micro employers, and the planned increase in contributions. But the fundamentals remain very, very positive. Despite the growing success of automatic enrolment, we know that there is a lot more done that we can do to promote retirement saving. I think yesterday afternoon you heard from the Review Advisory Group chairs. I'd like to thank Chris Curry, Jamie Jenkins and Ruston Smith. I personally cannot believe that three such eminent businessmen with such a great deal of intelligence have been allowed to be persuaded by the DWP to work for free. But I am, on behalf of the taxpayer, I'm delighted for their support and hard work. And I'm genuinely grateful because they are making a real difference in the review that they are doing to shape the way this is going. Now, I want to add a couple of points to this. So I know that a lot of people in this hall have already fed into the AE review, but I want to make it very clear that the window to feed into that is closing. So I hope you'll be pleased with the findings, but if you have not fed into it, you have got to do so fairly soon. From my perspective, it is absolutely critical that auto-enrolment continues to work for savers and employers alike. The bedrock for this system is trust and confidence in the pension system. We know that with a policy so successfully based on inertia, there is a challenge here around consumer engagement. Low levels of engagement means trust and confidence certainly cannot be taken for granted. And this is why we're specifically looking at how we can encourage positive engagement from savers as part of the review, alongside other important areas including the coverage of the policy and strengthening the evidence base around future contributions. As I say, I met the chairs very recently, and I look forward to reporting the findings to Parliament in early December. I can't be utterly precise, but I can tell you that I am aiming to do that report to Parliament in the week commencing December the 6th. That's certainly my target week. We hope that the review will provide a clear sense of direction and will be the first step in an ongoing conversation between industry, employers and government about how we build on the excellent platform thus far. I want to add one rider. I'm utterly passionate about auto-enrolment and fully committed to it. But I also want to make the case that it is good for employers as well as employees. I was one of the first backbench MPs, as was then, to make the case to the then Chancellor George Osborne for the living wage. And for me, the automatic enrolment story is very, very similar. These changes aren't just good for us as citizens and employees. I believe it is the right thing for business too, and I also believe it has a massive addition to the social cohesion of this country. Now, success won't be achieved solely on getting automatic enrolment to work for all. We need the schemes consumers are saving into to be well governed and efficient, with low and transparent costs and charges. This, we hope, will give people confidence that their savings are secure and that they are getting a good deal, with each pound that they, the employer and the taxpayer, puts in, working as hard as possible. The authorisation and supervisory regime introduced by the Pension Schemes Act of 2017 will ensure that over 7 million people saving for their pension through master trusts have the equivalent protection to members of other pension schemes. We're working closely with yourselves and other stakeholders to develop the secondary legislation that is needed to implement this full regime. We'll be formally consulting before Christmas. I can't be quite so precise on the date this time, but we will be before Christmas, and our intention is for it to be in place from October 2018. We've seen improvements in the value offered by pensions since we introduced automatic enrolment and the cap on charges. We said that this year we would examine whether the cap should come down and whether transaction costs should be covered. Having engaged a wide range of interest parties, we expect to conclude this examination very, very shortly. As well as reviewing the cap, we are also looking to increase the transparency of charges to members and the trustees who act on their behalf. Publication of charge and transactions cost information will then enable trustees and engaged members to compare the value for money they are receiving with their peers, we hope driving better market outcomes. The FCA, as you know, have already published final rules requiring asset managers to give cost and charge information to independent governance committees and to trustees of defined contribution schemes. However, we intend to consult on regulations shortly on how costs and charges should be published and given to members of defined contribution schemes themselves. Similarly, the FCA will also bring forward corresponding rules for members of workplace contract-based schemes in due course. Now, the PLSA have rightly highlighted the significant role of governance and scale in ensuring good outcomes for members. Many smaller DC schemes are well run and go to great efforts to ensure their schemes offer good value to members. However, we are aware that some employers no longer wish to offer a DC scheme and believe that members will receive better governance, greater administrative efficiency and better outcomes overall in larger schemes. But industry has also told us that the current conditions for transfer without member consent are complex and a key obstacle to allowing the DC scheme consolidation to develop. The current regulations covering the process of consolidation through bulk transfers between pension schemes without the consent of scheme members were drafted at a time when DB schemes dominated. That is why we sought further evidence from the industry about how the process could be improved at the end of last year. We expect to announce some positive proposals and accompanying regulations for consultation in this area in the next few weeks. As you can see, I have a very busy period of time up to Christmas. As well as taking action to improve the schemes themselves that want to act in members' best interests, we need to be alive to the very real threat from those whose actions deliberately undermine trust and confidence in the pension system. We've put in place campaigns to raise awareness and established a cross-government task force to coordinate enforcement action against these fraudsters. However, in August, I made a decision and announced my intention to bring forward measures to ban cold calling in relation to pensions. We're going to tighten HMRC rules to stop scammers opening fraudulent pension schemes and implement tougher actions to help prevent money being transferred into fraudulent schemes. We intend to bring the cold call ban as soon as parliamentary time allows. Now, many of you will know that I made an announcement this morning in relation to pensions dashboard. I wanted today's attendance to what is a very, very important conference to to be of significant meaning and to have a specific announcement that I know that many of you who have asked for some considerable period of time. So I was delighted to make the decision that I did on pensions dashboard. Because as well as guidance, consumers need access to good information on their pensions. That is why my Treasury colleagues have been working with industry on the development of the pension dashboards. The intention of a dashboard, as we all know, is to present a clear picture of a person's pensions entitlement in one secure online location and make it easier for savers to plan ahead. A well-designed and thought-through dashboard has the potential to enhance consumer engagement and, more simply, help people make better decisions. The industry project managed by the ABI, to whom I'm very grateful, has done great work in delivering a prototype infrastructure showing that the technology works. We see this as being a big step forward, but we remain some way off from a working pensions dashboard. As highlighted in the report published by the ABI, there are a number of key areas to consider. For example, whether to compel schemes to participate, the governance arrangements, a model for delivery that will work for both industry and the user, regulation, data, dates, and a lot more need to be considered. But I am delighted to announce that the DWP is going to lead this work in government. And with support, of course, from colleagues in Treasury, industry and others, including consumer groups and regulators, we will take this forward together. The needs of the consumer must be at the heart of any design. We want to maximise people's engagement in their pensions whilst maintaining their trust. We must ensure that consumer interests are properly safeguarded and their information protected. The DWP will initially lead a feasibility study to explore how best to achieve this. We will be building on the excellent work of the ABI, and we will be considering all aspects of timing, data, costs and regulation. I want to stress that we will take this work on at pace. However, you will understand that there are many interested parties and it is important that we get their input. Therefore, I propose to provide a much fuller update in the spring of next year. But be in absolutely no doubt, the dashboard will happen. Now, I want to talk briefly about defined benefit schemes. These vast schemes, as we all know, are worth about 1.5 trillion, equivalent to 3/4 of the UK's annual GDP. Such schemes are vital for both the UK public and the UK economy, which is why we published the Green Paper in February, looking at their security and sustainability. Evidence presented in the Green Paper highlighted that there is no fundamental crisis and that DB schemes are broadly affordable, with most members expecting to receive full benefits. However, the paper did recognise that there are areas within the system, the regulatory system, that could be changed to help improve outcomes for members and sponsors. The paper also acknowledged that for some employers, the cost of providing the promised pensions in the current environment was a struggle, and therefore looked at wider issues including scheme affordability, funding and investment. We will be looking at how best to protect private pension schemes and ensure their sustainability. Now, our manifesto in May set out proposals to strengthen the pensions regulators' powers in this area. This included powers to scrutinise, clear with conditions, and extreme cases prevent corporate transactions, issue large fines and disqualify directors, as well as creating a new criminal offence for company directors who put pension schemes at risk. I'd like to thank the PLSA and their members for their valuable input into the consultation that has followed the Green Paper. In particular, I'd like to thank Ashok and the other members of the DB Task Force for their important contribution to the debate on consolidation and their recent Opportunities for Change report. This report is a valuable addition to the discussion on consolidation and puts forward some interesting ideas on benefit simplification, the Chair's statements and standalone super funds. We'll consider the Task Force recommendations carefully as we work towards a white paper. My officials have worked closely with the PLSA and others to understand the cultural and legislative changes that are needed to encourage and enable consultation. We have also examined the responses to our recent Green Paper carefully and undertaken further detailed work with industry. We now plan to outline the changes that we feel would help facilitate greater consolidation, along with other proposals in a white paper. In what is a highly complex and technical area, we think it is important that we try to build a consensus on the legislative and regulatory framework that may be needed. Before I close, I want to make a couple of final points. I'd like to say a little bit more about my second job as the First Minister for Pensions and Financial Inclusion. For me, financial inclusion is not just about access to products and services. It requires consumers to be consistently engaged in decision-making, to be protected from practices that are a threat, and have a high degree of confidence that the financial system will work for them rather than the other way around. The guidance bill that I've talked about is a very, very important step in this agenda, and I look forward to working cross-government and particularly with the Treasury to make sure that we deliver on this agenda. Now, I'm a Conservative. I had normal jobs before I became an MP. I was a businessman, a lawyer, and a steeplechase jockey. I realise you now all look at me and think that must have been a very big horse. But I got into politics late in life because I wanted my country run in a better way. And I am immensely proud of what we have achieved under the coalition and under this government, of which auto-enrolment is clearly one of the key successes. There are other things, whether it is raising the minimum tax threshold, creating the living wage, 30 hours free childcare, enhanced funding the NHS, 2 million apprenticeships, or the 3 million new jobs since 2010. Although I'm always careful about citing the 3 million jobs because, of course, 6 of them were taken by George Osborne. But I do consider it my serious point is, I consider it to be a real honour to be given this particular job. It is a job I want to do, and it is a job which I regard as utterly crucial, not just for this government, but for this country and for our children and grandchildren. And I'm absolutely determined that we get people match fit for a 40-year plus future journey to a proper retirement. I'm excited to be here and working with you to improve the lives of both today's and tomorrow older people. And while I hope I've made clear my priorities, it is clear to me that there is something on which we can all agree. We need to be one voice. We need to evangelise pensions and savings. And I hope I can be your champion for pensions and savings. Thank you very much.
Minister, thank you very much indeed. Clearly a busy agenda for you and indeed for us and our members over the next few months. I know you're on a tight schedule, but I hope you've got time to take at least a few questions. A couple of members have already caught my eye, actually. So, so one...
I should make the point, I have got a cold, so hence why I'm taking this.
One in the centre there and one on the aisle there. While we're getting mics there, I'll ask you a question first, if I may. You talked about the pace you want to work on it in making the dashboard project, taking the dashboard project forward. I hope you've sensed at conference while you've been here today lots of excitement and enthusiasm from us and our members. And I wondered if you could say just a little bit about how you see government industry working going forward, particularly in the period to next spring.
So I sat at the back of the pensions dashboard breakout session and listened very quietly at the back. I was very pleased not to be noticed and asked lots of questions then. I unquestionably accept that the industry has been very keen for us to proceed with this. I've held a number of round tables and met a number of people, and it has absolutely been something that you've all called for. I think what I don't want to do is I don't want to cherry pick individual pieces of what the dashboard looks like, whether it is state pension, compulsion, data, regulation, governance. I want to try and look at them all in the round. Mm-hmm. And there is a temptation to go, well, this is the one thing that I want to talk about. I think the most important thing is, are we going to do it? The answer is unequivocally yes. The second is, which bit of government? Now, that may not seem a big deal to you guys, but it is a big deal to us, certainly. Which bit of government's going to do it, and therefore going to take this forward? And then you then get into the how. The how is obviously very difficult, but we've got a lot of work already done, and we want to then sit down and analyse over about the next 3 to 4 months. All right, what have we got so far in terms of the evidence that we have? What is the opinions of everybody? What is doable in the short term? What is doable in the long term? Where are we going? That's the plan. Whether it is data, dates, coverage, compulsion, state pension, the degree to which regulation is involved. I think there is sometimes let me give you the data example very quickly. So anybody who was part of the government when we did the Investigatory Powers Act will know that the the legislation in relation to data took an awful long time to deal with. And you need to get that very clear for obvious reasons, because you're dealing with personal information. Now, to an extent, we've done that because we've done the Investigatory Powers Act. But these things are not simple in the sense that those parts of it really will take some time.
I'm glad to see you focus on the whole rather than just the component parts.
That's what I'm trying to do that, certainly.
Thank you. Number 3 over there. And then I'll take the question there as well. Yeah.
Susan Martin from Local Pensions Partnership. Minister, you've got representatives from across the industry here. What one thing could we do to help you?
Wow, good question. I think, so, as I said, I had a proper job before, and I've now done this job for 7 years. Everybody goes to government with problems and says, solve this, solve this, solve this, and it probably will help our business make some money as well. My strong advice is go to government with solutions. And slightly, you will all know the problems that exist within your industry. Now, some of it, as I've set out today, can only be resolved by government regulation and action, but not all of it. And I think look in a mirror is the advice I always give everybody, and ask yourself, do you really feel that your particular business, your particular group of businesses are doing the things that you would like those businesses to do? If you do, great. But there will be some who necessarily are not doing that. And the greater degree to which you solve your own problems and then come to us, the less that we need to regulate and the more that we are working as a partnership. And I think that is the key thing in my view. It's a collective approach, but it is also get in the game and help us solve the problems that we all know exist.
And I guess, Minister, one area where we've looked at ourselves and said we're not serving our members well enough is in giving people an idea of what a decent retirement income might be in terms they can understand and comprehend. And you may have had a chance to see our report last week called Hitting the Target, where we set out proposals.
I've seen it. I've speed read it. It'd be a lie to say I've read every page, but I have speed read it, and I've certainly discussed it. So, in relation to that, without any shadow of a doubt, we welcome the report, and it's on my to-do list to read in detail, I hasten to add. But I think the key thing is my job is to try and give people the tools that they can then take personal responsibility for the decisions that we all know that they need to make. And it is providing the availability, whether it is dashboard, whether it is midlife MOT, whether it is a single financial guidance body, whether it is the extension of auto-enrolment. I want to try, this is a difficult thing for any minister to do in any department, but I want to try and weave together a narrative thread whereby we can identify 4 or 5 different actions by government. I can give you the sort of ones I'm thinking of, which is obviously dashboard, single financial guidance body, extension of auto-enrolment, and midlife MOT, that allow the individual to be match fit for the future. And if we can do that, then I think we will really be making progress.
We're very much with you on that match fit for the future objective, so it's good to hear that. Andy, you have the final question.
Thank you. Andy Cheselgreen, Capital Cranfield Trustees. Thank you, Minister, particularly for the announcement on dashboard. Your job title and responsibilities are both pensions and financial inclusion. How do you see the latter interacting with the former? So,
I should say I would love to stay and drink beer with you and hang out with you all, but I'm duty minister tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock in the morning in the House of Commons, answering for the entire department, and that requires A, an early night, and B, me to get back to London. So there is a reason why I've got to cut and run. But I'm the first minister to be made Financial Inclusion Minister, and I was delighted when the Prime Minister made that decision after the general election, and I was also very pleased that it was linked to the pensions portfolio. And I come from a background of action to address financial inclusion in my local constituency. And it was patently clear to me that this was something on a cross-government basis, that it would be a real benefit, not just to government, but massively to consumers and the general population, if we were allowing a greater degree of focus on this. I think there is massive links to the pensions portfolio. When we also made the decision, so there is sometimes a criticism that government hasn't done X, Y, or Z. I look at, just since June, the decision to proceed with a single financial guidance body, proceed with dashboard, proceed with the creation of a financial inclusion minister. There is a common thread, in my view, to try and provide those tools that then are particularly impacted by Department of Work and Pensions. And I'll make one final comment, which is linked to the question the lady asked earlier on about what do I expect of the pensions industry, which is we all can talk about and do talk about the way in which we want people to be more match fit for the future. When I ran the living wage campaign back in 2012, 2013, and went to see the Chancellor and made the case to him that paying cleaners a living wage was, if it was multinationals, was patently obvious the right thing, but also the right thing to do before productivity, staff retention, and so many other things. We managed to get a sort of groundswell of support that people looked at the way they ran their businesses. I am always stunned and amazed how little that organisations in all aspects of financial services don't necessarily give financial capability, advice, financial HR to their own employees. So slightly my role is also to nudge, encourage and applaud. Steelite is a good example. I think it's a really impressive thing that a potteries business in Stoke brings into said potteries business in Stoke a financial advisor on a regular basis and has done for many years. There aren't many companies who do that and provide that effectively for free as part of their HR. Now, trying to change the behaviour, not just of the wider public, but also look in a mirror. Ask yourself, is your business doing everything you think that it should be doing on those particular issues? And my job as the Minister for Financial Inclusion is to try and encourage people to do that.
Minister, thank you very much indeed for sharing your thoughts and plans with us, and thank you for the time you've spent with us more generally at conference today. I know our members really appreciate it, and we look forward to continuing and building on the dialogue.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And just a reminder that it's now time for our drinks reception down in the exhibition hall. And a personal plea from me, please do try and seek out the We Love Manchester stand right at the back of the exhibition hall. It's a great cause and I know you'll want to support it.